So, the project of this video is what I like to call lizard lovers. This is because, well, there are two lizards first, and they were placed in a position based on a heart, which is going to be clearer once we're done carving the cylinder. That's the basis for the project, and then I'll be tracing. I'm starting to consider the idea of buying bits of woods that are already in cylindrical shape because I like a lot the process of carving on a cylinder. So having a pre-made cylinder hopefully would be more better for the ecology, for the environment, because hopefully uh, industrial industrial cylinder making processes are more efficient than my manual one. That would be the hope. But I'm going to be sticking with the blocks I already have. I have quite a lot of them to go through before I start worrying about buying anymore. So here we're going to be starting the process of drawing. So basically what I did is I drew a heart without connecting the endpoints, and then on top of the lines of this heart, I drew the lizards, um, with the tail being the final curved portion of the drawn heart. I really like how it turned out. The legs of the lizards make it so that the heart is a bit lost. It's still there. It's still in essence there because the foundation of the project is a heart, but it makes it slightly less readable at first glance. And this foundation of a heart is why I call them lizard lovers. They're a pair of lizards that are in love. Simple as that. Um, I was worried before I started the project about how the lizards would be placed because I had done some tests of some drawing tests of the how I wanted the lizards to go, and those had somewhat mixed results, and I feared that once it's on the cylinder, it would be harder to draw the shape how I wanted it to be, which didn't end up being the case. The drawing is exactly how I wanted it to be. So that's nice to know. One of the difficulty with this project was that because I wanted there to be a fairly obvious heart shape, the two lizards had to be placed very close to one another, which made it so that it was harder. It was kind of hard to carve uh, between the lizards, especially inside the heart. Outside the heart, there was a bit more of a gap in the. So there was a bit more of a gap, so it was easier to deal with. But inside the heart, it was really cramped, and I had to place my knife in really strange angles in order to remove the wood. But overall, it was a very fun project. So this is the first time I make a somewhat complex composition, a thought out composition for a piece. So far, I only did just a beaver, just a snake, just one animal, or well, in the case of insects, a group of animal, but they were mostly randomly placed, so I don't really count it. But this one is the first one where I had a plan, a thought about how I would orient the things before I started. And so it's basically the project I have which had the most complete artistic process, is how I'd say it. It was a lot less guesswork than my previous projects. It was a lot more thought out and methodical. Which I think is a good thing. At least it makes it more satisfying at the end. It feels more artistic, is how I would say it. That sounds really stupid now that I say it out loud, but that's how I feel. It feels more artistic and more, let's say, professional to have a true plan and do things in a thought through way. I certainly won't always do it with a plan like this because, well, I'll end up not having. There is a limit to the amount of ideas I can have for. Since I do one sculpture a week, I can't keep up a pace of having good ideas after good ideas after good ideas. So I'm probably going to do, well, I don't know, a number of normal projects while I think about a more thoughtful project, and so forth. Like, I thought about the idea of the lizards. I started thinking about making lizards for a little bit now, but I didn't really know how to place them. I didn't want to make just one lizard because that felt boring in a way. So I wanted there to be more. So I thought about making a family, but then I was worried that there would not be enough room, which was a correct concern. I definitely would not have been able to fit a third lizard on this block of wood, and on the bigger blocks I have, it would have felt empty. So I think going with two was a good idea. But the thought of there being a family led me to think about there being just the father and the mother of the family, or future mother and father of family, was to say. And then, well, without a child, what we're left with is two lizards in love, which feels like a good project to make. I initially wanted to dig a lot deeper into the wood with this project because I wanted to give a more full shape of the lizards. I wanted to be more. I wanted to be able to define the complete shape of the lizards, make them round, and maybe have them the connection between the bottom of the lizards and the cylinder rounded off so that it looks like it's on top of the wood and not part of the wood. But because of how cramped it was inside of the heart, it didn't feel like a realistic option. It would have been taken. It would have been too dangerous in my mind for me to It would have led me to break the legs or the fingers of the feet of those lizards, which would have been a lot more annoying than the annoyance. I don't like the idea that I compromise on the depth and on the final shape, but the sacrifice that I could have made trying to do so would not have been worth it. It's not guaranteed that I would have broken something, but it would have been a lot more likely in my mind, at least. So, being moderate in my self-imposed criterions was definitely a good thing, I think. As you've seen, I've done mostly the outside of the heart so far. I started with the top and the bottom of the block of wood because those are the easy bits. Then the outside, just to get in the groove of making details, and then I started doing the inside of the heart. Because then, by doing this portion last, uh, at that point I was already in the groove, in the zone, so to speak. So I believe I was more focused and confident in my carving than I was at the very beginning of the process. In the course of the various projects I've done so far in wood carving, I realized that it's going to sound obvious, but it's very useful to go by section. For example, here when I do the legs, I do the inside portion of leg near the body, then I do the contour of the outside of the fingers and the hand. Then I go zone by zone around the detailed portions and the so that way I'm able to center my focus. That doesn't feel like the correct way to decide it, but to describe it, but it helps. Yeah, it helps focus on the details that are right in front of me and not worry too much about the remainder of the project. Because I know that when I did, which one was it? Uh, I know that I don't remember right now. I have a blank, but I know that for some of the projects I didn't really have a clear plan, and I kind of did everything at once, more or less, which didn't end up helping me much. But here and the last few carvings I made, I thought a lot about being systematic and careful about the order I do things, which helped a lot. So here you see me remove a bit of wood from the legs, the top of the legs. That way the legs are at a different height than the rest of the body of the lizard, which helps give it a bit more depth, I think. It's subtle. At least on video, it doesn't really matter much. It's, it's not really visible all that well. But in real life, it does change something. And then after I'm done with that, I round the outside of the body of the lizard. Less than I would have liked because of the fact that, as I stated before, I didn't go as deep as I planned on the wood around, but still I rounded off so that it looked more natural and not as sheer as it was before. Doing this rounding off is somewhat difficult. Different portions of the piece need different, very specific angles for it to go well, which made it go difficult. And now we have the finish portion, the finishing, where I use a wood burner to do the detail of first the eyes, and then I do all of the scales all over the body of the snake, of the lizards. You may have noticed that I didn't keep on video the initial tracing of the scales. That's because I felt it wasn't necessary since all of the lines would be just traced over with a wood burner. So it felt redundant to leave in also the tracing of the sketch. I also didn't do the pattern of the scales on the sketch on the entirety of the lizard because I didn't want to leave too much traces with the pencil that could maybe smudge over time and be a problem. So I only started off with a bit of a sketch to get me in the right direction to start me off, and then I just followed the pattern and tried to repeat it as much as possible without needing any more sketches. And here it's the fastest time lapse of the video. It's not obvious, but most of the video is in 2 times speed. The making of the initial cylinder is at 3 times speed, and here the wood burning is at 4 times speed. It's not obvious that it's faster because of the fact that because wood burning needs a little bit of time to. Wood burning is slow. I need to move slowly in order for the wood to burn properly and for the line to be clear and visible. So even though it's in 4 times speed, it doesn't look. It looks like the slowest portion of the video, but it isn't. It also was a very significant portion of the stream where I made these lizards. I underestimated the difficulty and the time it would need to do all of the scales for both lizards. It was a bit of a chore. Is kind of harsh to say, but the wood burner does have a bit of a weight to it, which made it tiring to hold, and especially since at that point already was I don't know, an hour and 10 minutes maybe that I had carved with his hand, which made it already kind of tired. So all of those scales was a long time holding this wood burner, which does get hot for the hand, which was a bit stressful. There is a protection, so it's not that harsh, but it is a. My hand was sweating by the end. Had I had I known it would be that hard, I probably would have made the scales bigger. That would have, like, if the scales were twice as big, it would have taken half the time, well, more or less, which would have significantly decreased the difficulty of the finishing portion of this piece. But I say that, but I do not regret the way I made it. It does look very good, uh, both on video and in person. And I wouldn't want them not to have the scales. It really makes the lizards pop out, and it's very fun to watch. Well, it was fun to make, but tiring. Also, here I use a different technique for the scales than what I use for the snake. For the snake, I made just lines into different directions and that crisscross in order to make the scales. But for the lizards, because they were lovers, I wanted them to be softer, so I made tiny semicircles to detail the scales, which I think made it look softer and more appropriate for what I was making. Not that harsher things can't be in love, but it felt more. It felt closer to the mood I was trying to go for with this piece. So, but this technique also does take more time because when doing just lines that crisscross, I don't have to move to. I don't have to make as much movement with the with burning stylus, if that makes sense. Because a straight line, I play it's just one movement. But with a semicircle, I need each semicircle is like two movement, one in each direction with the curve. But so to make the same amount of scales, I have to do not infinitely more movement, but hell of a lot more movement. Uh, because of when crisscrossing, I do the lines which are easy to make, and they happen to form the correct shape by the end, which would never be the case making semicircles. It may sound as though I'm complaining, but that's not really the case. I'm just trying to improve, and to do that, I try to be critical of what I do. It's not in the techniques I use. It's not. I like a lot all of the carvings I've made. Some more than others, but being critical like this while doing the commentary and while I'm editing the videos gives me a good opportunity to do a post-mortem on the project and my methods and how I can improve for the future. I consider making these videos an important part of my artistic process and improving myself. And to do that, harsh descriptions of what I'm doing feels like a good way to push myself to do better in the future. I wouldn't want someone to take away from my commentary that I don't like what I do. That's simply not the case. But I sometimes worry that's how it comes across. And with this, the project is basically done. So I'm going to be saying thanks for watching. Feel free to come by whenever you want, and goodbye.